What's going on, everybody? Welcome into a brand new episode of the Chasing the Pack podcast. I'm your host, Chase Lacombe, and thank you so much for being here. Merry Christmas to everyone, wherever you are today in the world. I hope you had a wonderful holiday yesterday on Christmas. What a great day for everyone, including the Green Bay Packers. Green Bay got one of its best presents all year long, courtesy of one of the most unlikely sources I think that we would have ever expected at this point. But yesterday, the Minnesota Vikings gave Green Bay a playoff berth for their 2025 season without Green Bay even having to touch the football. So what a wonderful game to see the Vikings take down the Lions 23-10 on Christmas. The Vikings actually did themselves a little bit of a disservice, being that they're already out of the playoffs. They hurt themselves a little bit in next year's draft, moving from 14 to the 17th pick. We'll see what they can do next week. But they are currently 8-8 now, I believe, tied with the Detroit Lions. But what a great Christmas present on Christmas Day for Green Bay to clinch a playoff berth. And there's a little bit that I actually want to talk about in this game that we just saw last night, the Vikings and Lions. Just an absolutely abysmal game for Jared Goff. Probably one of the worst games of his career that I've ever seen him play. And it's not that it was Minnesota really having just the game of their life. That was horrible on offense. Just hard to watch on offense for Minnesota, which it's been like that for, weeks and the majority of the season with a few blips here and there, a 31-0 blowout, sprinkled in an otherwise pretty disappointing and abysmal season. Not even having JJ McCarthy in there right now at all, obviously. But yeah, with Jared Goff yesterday, 6 turnovers for Detroit on the whole day. Goff coughing up the football. He just seemed allergic to it, all day. 2 fumbles, 2 interceptions, just absolute atrocious. But I wanted to talk a little bit about the Lions' drives and how they went through this game and really how this fell apart so quickly or just so completely for Detroit. They went punt, fumble, touchdown, end of half. Get the ball back in the second half. They go punt, interception, fumble, punt, field goal, fumble, end of game. A fumble, touchdown, end of half, and then go punt, interception, fumble, punt, field goal, fumble, end of game. Just a horrible day at the office for Detroit. Their playoff hopes ended yesterday, but being a Green Bay Packers fan, and this being a Green Bay Packers channel, we're going to be celebrating Green Bay's win and not really dwelling on the sorrow of the Detroit Lions season ending yesterday. So, that's their loss, but for Detroit, this was a disappointing season for everything that they had to look forward to and all of their hopes and aspirations coming into this season. It really shows that the loss of Ben Johnson has really hurt Detroit. And I think if maybe in hindsight, if they had flipped it and let Dan Campbell go and kept Ben Johnson, there may be a little bit more hope for Detroit right now at the end of this season. Chicago's looking a lot better, looking a lot more competent. And we saw that against the Packers last week. Now, it wasn't the Packers' best game either, especially with all the injuries, losing Jordan Love, and Malik almost, pulled out some Malik magic again, and we've almost just kind of come to expect that from Malik at this point. But that was a game that I think all of us as Packers fans really would have liked to have had, but we had everything in our hands working forward towards this, even with all of the injuries to Micah Parsons and all of the players that we had lost the week before, Zach Tom and Christian Watson and everything against Denver. Thankfully, getting some of those players back, but there is no replacing Micah Parsons, injury. And we're going to talk a little bit about Green Bay's pass rush and things coming up and what maybe we could do moving forward. But, Detroit really kind of hung in this game for a while. And even going into the fourth quarter with everything, I think they had 5 turnovers going into the fourth quarter. It was either 5 or they did have the 2 fumbles. I can't remember if both of those happened in the fourth quarter, but they were still only down 6 points whenever they started the fourth quarter. So they were 1 play away from taking a lead and coming back and potentially winning this game and saving their season, at least for potentially 1 more week, right? But we just witnessed Detroit meltdown, and for them it wasn't because of excessive injuries like Green Bay's had to. I think Amon-Ra St. Brown went down in this game for at least a little while. I do believe he came back, but don't quote me on that. I'm not 100% sure. But yeah, this was a very winnable game for Detroit and Minnesota. But that was ultimately just proved to be too many mistakes to overcome. Vikings defense did look formidable though. And really, I think that is the bigger takeaway from this, is that their defense is going to be something to have to really, really game plan for and overcome. They are ball hawks. They are going to find ways to take away the football if you give them the opportunities to. There were a couple of bad throws from Jared Goff that really just gifted them the ball. Also, the 2 fumbles from your quarterback, those 3 right there. But there were a couple that you have to just tip your hat to Minnesota and say they earned those. They went out there and found that ball and went and got it and said, no, that's my football now. I'm taking it home with me. But again, Jahmyr Gibbs rushed for only 41 yards in this game, no touchdowns, and a 2.4 yard average per carry. That is, man, if you hold Jahmyr Gibbs to 2.4 yards and only 41 yards in 4 quarters, you've basically erased him off the stat sheet. Yeah, he wasn't a non-factor. Amon-Ra St. Brown, 8 catches for 68 yards, 8.5 yard average. Not a great day. Justin Jefferson was, what do you have? 4 receptions, 30 yards. Non-issue. Not even there in the game. But Max Brosmer, 51 yards passing, 56.3% completion percentage. No touchdowns, but no interceptions. So he didn't put the ball in harm's way, but he certainly didn't help Minnesota's offense. And even with their defense putting up, 5 turnovers in the entire game, Detroit was still 1 play away. They were, it's only down 6 points going into the fourth quarter, and some time and distance into the fourth quarter, that they had a real shot and opportunity if they could just clean up those mistakes. They've been very clean with it the last 4 or 5 weeks, have not turned the ball over a single time. And this week, find a way to have 6 turnovers in 1 game, and really in 3, most of them in 3 quarters of football. And they made up for lost time real fast. Jordan Addison tears off for a 65-yard run for a touchdown on his only 1 carry. For whatever reason, he wasn't getting the ball. He wasn't getting the touches. Minnesota was not effective on offense. Green Bay has still found a way to be very effective on defense, even with losing Micah Parsons and everyone. They found a way to be effective with the players that we still have. People have stepped up for Green Bay, and I think this is a golden opportunity come week 18 for Green Bay against the Minnesota Vikings. Now, we've obviously been talking about these last 2 games, and the Vikings are not tomorrow's game for Green Bay, but I did want to kind of go through and break down that game just a little bit from last night from Detroit and Minnesota, because that does, the 2 NFC North teams, and that does give Green Bay our playoff berth now for the year. So it's what Green Bay is going to want to do moving forward, and how they want to kind of game plan these next 2 weeks against Baltimore and against Minnesota. We have the chance to still get the 2 seed, basically with kind of winning a 4-game parlay. Green Bay's going to have to win out. Chicago's going to have to lose out. And, there is a path to the 2 seed, but at what risk is that path, or do you pursue that path? At what risk how hard do you go in to try and win this 4-game parlay? And I mean, I don't think Green Bay is going to try and lose either of these 2 games, but it does present a unique opportunity, or just way of approaching these games for Green Bay, that I believe Green Bay is going to have to be a little bit more calculated in the way that they go about, and how much mainly the personnel that they put on the field, and how much do those players actually participate and play in these games if there's not really too much to play for. Now, in this first week, or this first game against Baltimore, right out of there will be more to play for. I don't believe we'll have seen the Chicago, or maybe we will have seen the Chicago game at that point. I don't have their schedule here in front of me. So if Chicago has already won by the time that Green Bay takes the field, that really may change things and the game plan and approach for what players. If we have no chance of reaching the 2 seed, I think that really is going to begin to affect Green Bay's decision making and how safe they are in these final 2 weeks. With its personnel and players, as we know that we are going to have one final game at least. A third try against Chicago, and in all likelihood will be back in Soldier Field. So I think it was advantageous that Green Bay did get to play that game in Soldier Field just here recently, so that we will only be about 2 or 3 weeks removed. I guess about 3 weeks removed from that atmosphere and that environment. It's not like we'll be more used to playing that team in Lambeau, and then we have to flip-flop back and forth. Like, we'll get 2 in a row there in Chicago. So I really hope that obviously Green Bay finds a way to win one of those 2, and being that we didn't win the last one, this would certainly be the one to win. But this is a team that really can control its own destiny at this point. For the most part, we do need some help, obviously, to get the 2 seed, but I hold that at a very small chance to get the 2 seed. And we'll talk a little bit about percentages of where Green Bay can land moving forward, and what some of those odds look like per the New York Times. But let's get into to the Packers Ravens game. Sorry, we're already 17 minutes into this video or so. But anyway, I want to start off with the injury report. I think this is going to be very telling and important for this game. Right out of the gate, it's your starting quarterback and who that is going to be for both of these teams. Lamar Jackson has not practiced all week long, and he is listed as doubtful going into this game. Jordan Love has continued to practice, but has not been cleared. He's not clear of the concussion protocol as of yet. So he's going to have to clear that regardless of how he's practicing, how he's feeling. So, and yeah, until he clears, we're looking more at Malik Willis, starting in here. He is coming off the injury report, it seems. So I know he does still have the shoulder injury to his throwing arm, but and we're going to see how much that's going to affect him. But whenever they were asked, one of the receivers was asked earlier in the week whether Clayton Thune was taking any reps with the ones or anything like that. They said no. Clayton had not. He had not taken any of the snaps in practice this week. So that's a really good sign that either they feel that Love will be cleared and ready to play in this game and would be good to go. And if he's healthy and he's cleared concussion protocol, then I truly believe that he likely plays in this game. I doubt that he really risks re-injury for just a concussion. I say just a concussion, but if he's coming back on a 6-day week, obviously we're not talking probably something as severe as what we've seen from, a Tua Tagovailoa concussion or any of his, throughout his career. If he's able to come back very quickly, it was probably more precautionary. There was something there in the early protocol that was, found and picked up on that, Jordan Love, I assume he really did suffer a concussion. That's why he didn't get to come back into this game. But if he's coming back that quickly, that seems like something that was probably as minor as it possibly could have been while still being a concussion. But again, I'm not a doctor. I don't pretend to be. Could just be this point in the season and they rush these things. And Green Bay does have a little bit of a track record of rushing a player back onto the field after significant injuries. And but this is not a knee or a high ankle sprain or a twisted ankle or a wrist injury or anything that really would affect his throwing motion, his mobility, or if he gets rolled up on again, could really, really do some damage unless he takes another hard shot, to the head. I think that he's probably, going to be able to play in this game again, barring that he does get cleared for the concussion protocol. But otherwise for Baltimore, excuse me, you're probably looking at Tyler Huntley taking snaps under center if Lamar can't go. For Green Bay, Zach Tom did not participate all week with his back and knee injuries. He's going to likely be out for this game. We were talking about Jordan Love. Jordan Love has been limited. He practiced for his third straight day on Thursday, but again, he's got to pass the concussion protocol. Bo Melton didn't practice all week with an illness, so he's questionable to go. That would be great if we could get him in there. Josh Jacobs was limited. Man, he's banged up. He's probably playing with more heart than body right now, and I think there's probably some people on the Green Bay side that is telling him, hey, take it easy. This point of the season, the opportunities that Green Bay has in front of it, and all of the adversity that Green Bay has been forced to have to find ways to overcome. I think Josh Jacobs being able to continue to be out on that field and teams have to game plan for him. And he still can tear off, these big, huge plays. We saw him finally, getting to really rip off some big plays. But right now, Josh is really just grinding it out there. He's giving everything that he has. Hopefully he can stay healthy. Some of the other running backs for Green Bay can really step it up, and Emmanuel Wilson, if they can really kind of take a lot more of these snaps away and be productive in their running, then I think that will go a long way to allowing Matt and everybody to really be able to kind of scheme and call these plays and be able to put healthy running backs out there and keep Josh Jacobs, still playing each week. Because right now we want to make sure that we have him healthy and available, feeling as good as he can be for Chicago in the wild card round. I mean, right now that's what matters, is being able to keep every one of these stars that we do have left on the roster, mitigate their injuries, keep them as healthy as possible and as productive as possible whenever they are out or they're able to be out there on the field. Sean Ryan was downgraded from limited participation to a did not participate at all on Thursday. That would really be unfortunate if he was not able to go. Christian Welch looks like he's going to be out this game with that ankle injury. John Williams is out with a back injury. And again, we talked about Malik Willis. He's questionable, but He went limited, did not participate, limited Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. So I think that Malik will be good to go. He didn't have a designation on the injury report, so I think I think that means that he's come off the injury report. So he'll be good to go. The status of Jordan Love is questionable. We'll see if he clears protocol. If he clears, the question is, does Green Bay play Jordan Love? Do they split it half and half between he and Malik? If does the status of Lamar Jackson, it looks like he really is going to be out for this game. More than likely, it's probably 90% chance Lamar is going to be out for this game. I haven't seen any official designation that he is in fact out. I don't think that they would have to release that until tomorrow. But I could be wrong. We'll see. But yeah, I think, is it Tyler Huntley or is it Malik Willis or is it Lamar Jackson? I think that is going to be, I think if it's Malik Willis versus Tyler Huntley, then I feel really good about Green Bay's chances. If Jordan Love is able to go, I feel really good about Green Bay's chances in this game. The question is, can they stay healthy, and do they want to risk potentially, losing another player, losing Jordan Love again? Green Bay has been pretty quick to bring back players and, back from injuries, and it's usually bit them in the butt. This is a year that we have been snake bit more than I can remember in the last quite a few years from injuries. Not just the caliber of players, but just the number of star players on our team. Yeah, it's been a few years since we've had that. And Green Bay does have the track record of bringing back players a little bit, maybe a week too early. If it's Tyler Huntley, do you take do you roll the dice, or do you just leave Malik out there and say, man, he's playing really good football right now? I think he had like a 148 point something, quarterback rating last week, 1 touchdown. Shouldn't have had the pick. But that was, or no, wait, that way, did he have the pick? That was just the turnover in overtime. So shouldn't have even happened. No overtime shouldn't have happened last week. We're not going to get into that. Anyway, Colin Oliver was activated off the PUP list. 5th round pick out of Oklahoma State. He's hardly practiced all season long. With John Fitzpatrick going down last week, being put on IR, season ending, that opened up that roster spot. So Colin Oliver, he came through his 21-day activation window, and with that roster spot available is going to be active. Whether or not he's on the active 48 game day roster, I'm not sure, but it's good that he's at least able to get out there and take some reps and get back to practice. Together with Brenton Cox Jr., this really could help the pass rush for Green Bay, or at least the depth, on it. Green Bay is going to have to really, really find a way to do well, in the pass rush and still generate a lot of pressure without Micah Parsons being here anymore. So I think they've done a pretty good job, but in 31 passing situations, I believe last week for Caleb Williams, 0 sacks. I believe we had a couple of pressures, but with somebody like Caleb Williams who can scramble as easily as he can, and even whenever we had Micah Parsons in the first game against him, Matt, he really does have the legs to do magical things, and he's doing magical things with his legs right now. And yeah, having that depth and getting these players back now, and at least getting them an extra 2 weeks of reps, or some, back on the game, game day experience, that they could really prove to pay some dividends for Green Bay and for these two players moving forward into the postseason. Talked about Clayton Thune not getting any reps already. Want to go into a couple of my keys for this game. I think, again, we were talking about quarterbacks. Who's going to be under center for each one of these two teams? And will Green Bay decide to rest Jordan Love? Again, we've already kind of talked about that one. That was we kind of moved into that throughout the injury report. Limiting Baltimore's run game, I believe, is going to be huge. They're third right now in the league behind the Bills and the Bears. We're averaging about 148 yards per game rushing, 5.2 yards a carry average. That's going to be huge. Derrick Henry right now is fourth in the NFL in rushing. He's got over 1,250 yards, 12 touchdown, over 5 yards a carry. They're running hard right now, and they're going to lean heavily on that run game and on Derrick Henry early and often in this game, especially if they have got Tyler Huntley out there and not Lamar Jackson. They're not going to be throwing it around the yard 40 yards deep on every play. Expect a lot of checkdowns. I believe that, Green Bay safeties are probably going to be playing, a lot down. These linebackers are going to have to really step up to contain the run early and really make Baltimore have to earn every single one of these inches. Green Bay has done very well in run defense, and it's going to have to show up in this game as well if Green Bay wants to have a punter's chance at really controlling this game and getting out to an early lead, controlling the clock, and get your defense off the field. Another thing is winning the turnover battle. It's time for Green Bay to start making some of these plays. They've put themselves into position. Jeff Hafley has put this team and these players in the right places. These players are instinctive enough. Valentine's instinctive enough to get down there, know where to be, get their hands on the ball. They're just not coming down with these interceptions and with these plays. So I think it is more than time for Green Bay to finally start coming down with some turnovers. Winning that turnover battle is going to be paramount in this game. And they're probably going to give you some opportunities. You know that they're going to throw you a couple your way. That all you have to do is step up and catch it. Staying healthy, that is going to be a big key to this game, and really a big key, not just to this game, but this season moving forward. They're going to need everyone on this roster to stay healthy and be playing championship football week in and week out right now. We cannot lose more players. We cannot lose Jordan Love again. We cannot lose Josh Jacobs. We have at wide receiver, we are pretty healthy. We have gotten Reed. We've gotten Watson back. We have playmakers who can make a huge difference on offense for Green Bay. We have to keep them out there. We are decimated. We don't have a championship, half a championship roster left, and especially the one that we had. So staying healthy with the players that we have throughout the rest of the season will determine in a big way how far Green Bay can go for the rest of this year. Green Bay's pass rush is still going to have to find a way to be disruptive. Quay Walker, Rashawn Gary, LVN, Colin Oliver, Brenton Cox Jr., Kingsley Enagbare, all of these players, they're going to need to step up. And I believe that they have been. Rashawn Gary is the one that has probably been the most disappointing this year. Early in the games, just jogging it off, just letting it go. Somebody will get up there. I mean, we remember watching Josh Jacobs whenever he was still here, just absolute run right past Rashawn. Well, he's already pulled up and just kind of jogging, just letting somebody else wrap it up. And he's done with the play. While the play was still right there going on right in front of him. Where was that explosiveness that we see in all these little videos and montages and things that he puts out of his workouts and the off season and the postseason, and look how explosive he's going to be. And then we just see him just jogging and not even injured. So I don't have any faith that Rashawn Gary is going to begin to make any kind of a significant impact or step up in the place of Micah Parsons and really try to be any type of disruptive any more than he already is. And I think these are the very last few games for Rashawn in Green Bay. Unfortunately, yeah, I think Rashawn has been really good for Green Bay over the years. But if this is the Rashawn moving forward, I think you take what you can get for him, as a comp pick, and probably somewhere in the 5th or 6th round, and you get that back and you reinvest that into a new player. And but yeah, I think Rashawn has regressed, and I don't think that he has much left in the tank to really step up and be helpful for Green Bay the majority of the season, or for the rest of the season moving forward, unfortunately. Another thing I want to talk about, limiting mistakes. We've seen how Green Bay can not limit mistakes, they can limit mistakes, and then they can make just a few critical mistakes at the very, very, very bitter end and cost them the game. Or they can make mistakes early and never really find a way to recover from them. So limiting the mistakes that we did last week, getting ahead, controlling this game, the penalties and the special teams. If we can limit special teams mistakes and we can limit the amount of penalties, Green Bay's been pretty good about that for the last several weeks, for the most part, or we were until Chicago last week. We were getting really good at mitigating mistakes and shooting ourselves in the foot. Hopefully that was just a one-off fluke, and that was the last loss of the season against Chicago. And, we go on a 6-game win streak right now and bring home a Lombardi. It's great, right? That all sounds really good, but you've got to limit mistakes. You've got to limit the penalties. Talked about winning the turnover battle, but special teams ineptitude has got to be mitigated or just erased. I don't know how much you can mitigate it at this point. It just seems to be that's in Green Bay's DNA, with special teams. And that's just that's who we are. We don't really draft players for Rich Bisaccia to be able to use that are the right size and fit for punt returners, kick returners. Our wide receivers are built to be a different size and breed of wide receiver than what would, really lean in an advantageous way on special teams. I don't know how many times you have to see that special teams is going to kill you and cost you seasons. It's not just your wide receiver depth, but the type of wide receivers that you have here and your ability to be effective on special teams. And maybe not even just effective, just not the thing that kills you every week, every year. Just every time you get a chance to go win a championship or really run down a champion, like or something like 12-2. This team could be it without special teams errors. 12-2. We'd be the first seed. Home field advantage, first week bye. A lot of our players would be a lot healthier, I'm sure, if we didn't put ourselves into those situations. Just limit the mistakes in this game and moving forward, and that will open up many of the possibilities for what this team can accomplish throughout the rest of this year. My last thing is establishing the run early with Josh Jacobs and Emmanuel Wilson. Control the time of possession. Make Baltimore have to beat you in the trenches, which is usually where most of these games are won and lost. If you can establish the run early, which has been an MO for Green Bay and for Matt LaFleur and Jordan Love this last month or so, they've been really good at it, actually, at getting off to an early start with Josh Jacobs running the ball effectively, opening up the playbook to the play action pass, some of these deep shots to Christian Watson and Dobbs and a few of these other players. it really does kind of open up every page of the playbook, and it starts with establishing that run early. Both teams are going to try and do that in this game. I think Green Bay has the better shot of limiting Baltimore's run game or the effectiveness of their run game. But if we have a healthy Josh Jacobs and kind of a tag team duo with what they've been doing, having Emmanuel Wilson in there a lot more, I think that Green Bay can be effective. It's just going to come down to, the run blocking for the offensive line. Not having Sean Ryan in there potentially could be big in this game. We'll see, but that's something really that's to be mindful and cognizant of early on into this game. Baltimore has only beat one playoff team this year, and that's the Chicago Bears in Week 7. I think it was October 24th. That was the last time that they put up 30 points as well this season, and the only time that they won scoring over 30. So since late October, since week 3 or third week of October, Baltimore has not, that was their one and only team who is currently going to make the playoffs. And the last time that they scored above 30 points. In the last 4 games, Baltimore is 1-3, scoring 14, 22, 24, and 24 points. So Green Bay, with their magical 27 number, seems like could come out of here with a victory. And 24 probably gets it done, without Lamar Jackson in there. 22, 24 points, 26 points, probably gets it done. Then we see what happens against Chicago. I believe Chicago is going up against the 49ers this week. So if the 49ers beat the Bears and Green Bay beats Baltimore, Week 18 will decide the NFC North. So we could actually have a really big week in Week 18, or potentially it could just be, if not, then there's nothing to play for, and it is basically a bye week. One that Green Bay desperately needs. They need a bye week right now at this point in the season. They need to be able to take advantage of or get some rest. They need a little time off right now. It's just been Saturday games and loss of players and losing Jordan Love and just quick turnaround. Everybody practicing as much as they can, doing their due diligence to get out there, get back on the field, stay on the field, and stay healthy. But this team, make no mistake about it, they're one of the most injured teams in the NFL right now. And Green Bay, if they don't have anything to play for in Week 18, if Chicago wins, if they beat the 49ers, then really there's nothing to play for. There is no 2 seed anymore. We would be guaranteed the 7th seed since we've already clinched the playoffs, and Green Bay's players could really just sit up and rest and recover. You'd probably be playing Malik Willis in hopefully his last game for Green Bay. I think it almost like a Matt Flynn situation, right? Against Detroit in Week 17, back whenever it was only a 17-week season. But Matt Flynn wrote himself basically a blank check in that game, go throwing for 6 touchdowns and setting Green Bay's all-time touchdown record that even Aaron Rodgers never even touched, or Brett Favre, gunslingers. So I think that every time that we've seen Malik Willis touch the ball for Green Bay, good things have happened. And with just 1 or 2 plays, just if we if we recover the onside kick, and then Green Bay wins, and Malik Willis is the hero in Green Bay again. I don't think anything that happened after that point is really, after the failed onside kick, or successful for Chicago. I don't think any of that is going to affect Malik Willis's ability to find another team. And in the offseason this year. And I don't think it's about the money. I think that he is going to have a legitimate chance to start or at least be the backup behind somebody who, if, after 3 or 4 weeks just isn't up to snuff and, needs some time to sit on the bench and think about it, then I think that, it'll be Malik time, and he'll have a much better chance to get out there, win a starting job, and keep it. The only way he's gonna, get playing time in Green Bay is whenever Jordan Love is injured. There's just no opportunity that he's ever going to be QB1 in Green Bay without, season-ending injuries. So, and he's, it's not going to be about the money. And I don't think Green Bay can afford some. What do you think? Maybe a, 2-year, $12 million, somewhere in there. I don't think he gets 14, but I think he gets north of 10. I think a 2-year, probably $6 million per. That's a lot to pay a backup, and there's a lot of teams who are going to have the money to be able to pay him, but also more importantly, are going to have opportunities for him to come in there, if not from week 1 be the starting quarterback, but maybe he might go into, training camp, with one of these teams, maybe Indianapolis, maybe Minnesota. I don't know if Green Bay would be willing to deal him to a division rival, but at the same time, if they're willing, to give, if they have the capital and they, don't really believe in JJ McCarthy, I don't know. We'll see. It's a possibility. I think there's a number of teams out there right now that would love to have a quarterback like Malik Willis. And actually, from what I'm hearing, Green Bay has already received several phone calls and offers. I have no details on what those are, but I have heard that, yes, there are several teams who have already begun picking up the phone and calling Brian and asking about Malik. And I think that's something that happens this year, unfortunately. I think Jeff Hafley is probably likely gone for Green Bay as well this year, unfortunately. So hope it's not like Detroit last year, to where, they were just right on the cusp of, we're just looking right, staring down the barrel of a Super Bowl. And then, 1 year later, they're out of the playoffs. They're not even making the playoffs with, 2 weeks left to play in the regular season. So hopefully it's not just lose a couple of these pieces and it all falls apart for Green Bay. I think Jeff Hafley would be a lot more important than Malik Willis. I mean, hopefully next season, Green Bay wouldn't even have ever needed to have one snap other than maybe something in a victory formation for Malik Willis. So I think that's something that Green Bay can, potentially take advantage of this year in week 18, is maybe resting some of these players. But yeah, some of these players are going to be leaving Green Bay. So we'll see what happens these last few weeks. Yeah, we're all but certain with the 2 seed versus it's us in Chicago. So we're going to get a round 3 of Chicago. Want to talk about a little bit of the odds coming into this game. Is, per the New York Times, we have a 78% chance to hold the 7th seed. We have a 14% chance to win the NFC North and take the 2 seed. We have a 7% chance. A 7% chance to hold the 2 seed, a 14% chance to win the North, and a 3% chance to win the Super Bowl. Long odds, but I think the biggest takeaway from this is that, yeah, the 78% chance to hold the 7th seed, that is your most likely scenario. So again, I think that affects a lot of the decision making that Matt LaFleur is going to have, and what personnel plays and how many snaps and how much time that a lot of these players are playing. Maybe starting to get some of these rotational players back, like a Colin Oliver, and a Brenton Cox Jr., maybe putting them out there a little bit more often, maybe especially in the second half, if we have already established a lead, get them some playing time, get them some experience, because you never know. These are live snaps. These are live rounds, man. So having that experience, if they get called on, let's say we're in the divisional round and, somebody on that, D line goes down, they're going to need to step up, and just having these real life game reps here late this season. I think even in garbage time, man, if you can put them out there and just get them some live reps, I think that's going to be, huge for this game. I wish we had Parsons and Kraft, Wyatt, et cetera, for this run. And, we didn't have to be looking super far down the depth chart. But last time Green Bay made a run towards a Lombardi, we were pretty far down that depth chart, had lost an equal amount of games, and or maybe not equal amount of games, but maybe by the time the season ends, you never know like where we'll sit. But I know losing, week 14 and 15 was the same that year, lost, the two prior to the last two, of the season. I know that we don't want to go in with a 4-game losing streak headed into the wild card round. That's not where you want to be. At this point, I don't care. I don't care. I want to go in there healthy. I just want to field a healthy team, in week 1 of the wild card, or week 1 of the playoffs in the wild card. Going 4-0 on the road right now is, as the 7th seed to host a Lombardi. If we had Parsons and we had Kraft and we had Wyatt all back in, I think Green Bay really has a good shot with the teams that are left in the NFC right now. There's not too many teams other than maybe the Rams and the Seahawks that really give me any kind of pause for concern. I'm not really worried so much about San Francisco, although they are playing some pretty good football right now, and I really just don't want to come across them in the playoffs. I'm tired of losing to them in the playoffs. It would be great to get that monkey off your back. But if we have to go to Seattle, and face the Seahawks, that's not a game that I really want to play either right now. I don't need to relive that one again. I felt like I just relived it. I don't want that. I want Chicago. And then I don't know. I suppose we would probably get probably the Rams. If it's either going to be the Rams or the Seahawks, likely for the 1 seed. So yeah, if we make it past Chicago, I would in that scenario, I would probably be hoping for Los Angeles. I think that's it's a really good place for Jordan to play. He plays phenomenal in those types of games, in those environments. I think that could be really advantageous. And again, it's going to come down with how rested and how healthy Jordan Love is moving into, the wild card round, and, get through that. And then you're facing the 1 seed. So that's his Jordan Love's health and the health of these receivers and this offensive line. Really, everybody that's left on this team right now that's paramount. That will determine how far Green Bay ultimately can go in the playoffs and throughout the rest of the year, regardless of whether we're the 7th seed, we're the 2 seed, we win the North, we're second place. The health of this team will determine 100% how far we can go. I believe that Green Bay can beat any team left in the NFL right now on any given Sunday with the roster that we have left, for this team. I think it is extremely hard to go 4-0 on the road in the playoffs with this team. I think ultimately that will probably come back to, will be our shortcoming. But I believe Green Bay will be in every single one of these games down to the wire, which is why I say I believe that Green Bay truly can win every one of these games that it potentially has left on the schedule. But can you stay healthy enough to string together 4 to 6 games right now? We have one home game left tomorrow. And probably that's it. You know, if we do find a way to win the North, maybe get the 2 seed. If Chicago melts down these last 2 weeks, they're favored to lose those 2 games. Green Bay's favored to win its final 2. A lot can happen in the last month of the NFL. We have seen it. It's a roller coaster for every one of these teams, going from 2 to 7 to 7 to 2 to 2, 7 to just back and forth and up and down. You're in the playoffs. You're out. You're eliminated. You're clinched. Home field or on the road, or 3% chance, 7, 14, 78, blue 42. Everything is on the table. All of the cards are still there for Green Bay. Need a little help for some of these scenarios. I think it would be great if Green Bay could get a little bit of help. That would be a late, it would be great to get a late December and January gift to this team to get a little bit of help and help it make a run with what it has left. You know, we've earned it. We've got there. We found our way into the postseason dance. Let's see how far we can go. So I think, staying healthy, staying on top of this. The game plan is going to be there. Playing complementary football. It's all in front of this team. Just take it and go get it. That's going to do it for me today. I'll be back here probably tomorrow, breaking down Saturday's game after Baltimore and Green Bay. But without further ado, Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays. I will see you all tomorrow or on Sunday breaking down this game. And as always, go Pack Go.